Now we can all get down, put your drink in the air. Fellas happy with shot, and ladies let down your hair. I got the sound that'll have the people bobbing their heads. Forget the 9 to 5, gonna play it again, cause it won't stop. It's all about the feeling inside. Another path on the journey of the hip-hop ride. If you're down, leave your drama.
Yes, happy Sunday, everybody. Out here in the Mesilla Valley, Las Cruces, southern New Mexico, wherever you're at in New Mexico, West Texas, or Arizona. Thank you once again. Welcome on another Sunday of Off the Grid. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today. And, hey, I have a very, very special guest in the place today because I got a legend on the show today, y'all. So I just want to quick welcome Mr. Jack Nixon, the voice of the NMSU Aggies. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, Gabe. Thanks for having me as your guest. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So now let's get right to the meat on the bone. Okay, you've officially came out and said that this will be your final year. I believe it is your 45th year. Am I correct?
That's right.
So now tell me actually, you know what? Let's start from the top. Give me a little bit about your early life, high school, everything from there, and how you got started and eventually became the voice of the Aggies.
Well, okay. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. I went to Omaha Central High School, which is some really famous alumni. The youngest man ever inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame named Gale Sayers. Another guy who's done some things named Warren Buffett. They're both Central High Eagles. And then there's other people down the line like me and some others. But I went to Central for my first 2 years of college. I went to a place called Bradley University, which is in Peoria, Illinois. And then, they didn't really have the programs I decided that I wanted to go into radio. And so I transferred to the University of Kansas and got my degree there. And they have a journalism. Bradley didn't at the time have a journalism school. KU did and does. So I went there and graduated from there. My senior year when I was at Bradley, the seniors got to do on the little student. They had a little student station that was it's called basically a cable setup, kind of the same idea where the signal just went into the dorms and the fraternity houses. So I mean, it wasn't really on the air, but the students could, if they wanted to, they could listen to our little station. Well, the seniors got to do the play-by-play. That was the cool thing. So I was a freshman, so I didn't get to do that. Well, I transferred to KU, and they have a student radio station there. Same idea then, with just in the dorms, and they didn't have anyone to do play-by-play, and so I was my first semester down there. I was listening to it because they were broadcasting a KU like an exhibition game, and the guy they had doing it was terrible. And I thought, well, I don't have any experience, but I'm better than that. And so I called them, and they said, "Look, we know he's no good. He's just doing it because we had to have someone do it." And I said, "Well, I'd like to give it a shot." They said, "Okay." So I came down, and that was my junior year. Well, and that year, KU went to the Final Four, 1970-71 season. Went to the Final Four it was in the Astrodome then that year. And so as the end of the year came around, the students, we wanted to go broadcast again. I mean, KU had a regular radio network, for the standard like most schools do. Well, we wanted to do this too, so we raised money, and and so someone's uncle gave one of the guys like a big caddy or someone to drive, so 5 or 6 of us could drive down there, and so we drive down to Houston from Kansas City, and stay in some flea bag motel, and I mean, we're 20 years old, who cares? And anyway, so we broadcast Astrodome. Well, then the next year, the station in KU's in Lawrence, Kansas, and the next year the Lawrence High station needed someone to broadcast the Lawrence High basketball games, and so the fellow who was the KU the main KU gave my name, and they hired me, I think, for $5 a game. So broadcasting pays. So I did that, I graduated, I went to work for this town in just south of Lawrence called Ottawa, Kansas, and then I moved to a town, Ark City, Kansas, which is on the border. They, after a year in Ark, the news and sports director there, and they let me go because $600 a month was just too much of a dent in the budget. So they said, but we can't keep you. There's a theme here. I said, well, can I stay and just do the high school game? And they had a junior college there too. Can I broadcast the football games and just, like work part-time? And they said, yeah, okay, because they needed someone to do that. So I stayed and did that and looked for a job. Anyway, I got a job at a gospel station in Orlando, outside of Orlando, Florida, broadcasting Rollins College basketball. They had a pretty good year too. They were Division II. It was a different kind of a setup. It would be FCS or now, but it was basketball. But they went to the Division II playoffs, and so I got to do postseason again, and that was up in North Virginia. And so then but I knew the job was kind of wasn't going to go anywhere. So at the basketball season, it was over. I came back, drove back to I'm from Omaha, and as I think I said, anyway, I stayed with my parents, looked for a job, and eventually got hired after about a month of looking. I got hired by a fellow who ran a station in Hastings, Nebraska, which is out in the middle of the state. And they did, like ball games all the time. There were two or three high schools there, and a small college. And when they weren't playing, they would go out to these little small towns around Hastings. I mean, Hastings wasn't big, but they were small. In Nebraska, it's not like New Mexico. There's a lot of little towns everywhere, I mean, a lot of them. So they would go out to Geneva or Blue Hill or Red Cloud and sell advertising to those sponsors there, like, hey, you can have your high school game on the radio. Would you like to do that? Oh, yeah, that was a big thing for the people in Geneva. So then they say, okay, well, Hastings High isn't playing, but you have to go to Geneva and do the Geneva Harvard game or something. Harvard's another town in the. And so I'm referencing that one because it was like, okay, I mean, I would have rather had the Friday off, but it's part of the deal. And so I get there, and back then you everything now you broadcast on the internet. You have an Ethernet cable and you hook it, and that's like. Well, back then it was phone call. So there's a phone. So the phone line is looped over the back of the grandstand, which is small. And they said, well, there's your phone line. Go ahead. And there's no table. There's no booth. There's no. I'm sitting behind and I have have my little charts and everything to reference this. And it's like, well, okay. And I'm all, there's no color, man. I'm just doing it. And anyway, so I guess the point, and they also did American Legion baseball. They'd like 4 or 5 American Legion baseball games each week. So I guess the point of this story is that you either improved or you got sick of it, I think, so I don't know, I guess I improved, but and so it was just after the 4th of July in 1976. And I'd been trying to get out of Hastings for about a year. I had a real, when we're young, we have no concept of a lot of stuff and no perspective on things. And I thought at 20 did end it. Oh my God, a D1 6. I'm down on the vine. I'm stuck in this little tank town. It's unrealistic, but that was. I mean, I guess I was. Possessed is maybe not as nice a word as driven. Let's say driven. So anyway, I was calling around. I trying to run the markets where I thought, well, I can maybe move from Hastings to Des Moines or Hastings to Reno or Boise or some a somewhat larger market. Didn't have any luck. Well, I discovered that at the time KOBE was carrying the Aggie games, and so it was after the 4th of July, and I called thinking, oh, it's kind of late. If they needed someone, football's a month away, they probably filled him. I thought to myself, oh, just call them. Well, see, in 1976, long distance calls were kind of expensive. It's not like now where you can just call on your cell phone. Well, it was like $5 or $6 a call, I thought, oh, okay, just do it. Well, they were looking for, and so I sent them a tape, and they listened to it, and a couple weeks later they brought me down, and they hired me, and so I was here for 6 years, and wanted to. I know it's hard to believe that you can get dead end on Las Cruces, but this happened to me, and so I wanted to go. Again, I was still. I like cruises, but I was, ambitious and
Right.
wanted to move up, and which I don't think is. I was 32 by this point, and still young and unaware. And so anyway, I got a job in Tulsa. They said to do the University of Tulsa games. It was a news talk station that was coming in. Well, I get there, and they tell me, well, you're going to do some of the Tulsa games. We've hired there's a TV guy we really like, and he's going to do the home games, and you're going to do the road games, which was, it's like, well, half a loaf's better than none. And so anyway, so that's what happened, and I was doing what I liked. Well, the ratings come in the spring, and they decided to drop the work, including me. So at this point, I mean, this was a real humbling moment. I mean, it's like, I have to. I could go live in Omaha with my mom and look for work there. And bless her soul, I didn't want to do that, frankly. I'll go back. But I guess the downside of it is here I am back in town, out of work, and there was some crow, perhaps. At least I felt I had to eat. No one was mean about it, but I'm thinking, well, here I am, and after going off all exalted at the big market. Well, anyway, I live with some friends. They were renting a house down in Vado, and it was let's see, two other guys and their girlfriends, and they had a bunch of dogs and cats. So they went off to work, and I would walk the dogs and do all that while I was looking for work. Eventually, I get Tulsa gets his team in the United States Football League, the Oklahoma Outlaws.
Okay.
Who was a friend of
Yeah.
mine who was the SID for the University of Tulsa said, look, if you're still looking, I can't hire anyone until October, but if you're still looking for work, I'll hire you to be my assistant, and you can probably do color on the ball games. So, okay, well, I was still looking for work. I go back to Tulsa, and that was quite an experience. I did assisted with PR and promotions, and did color on the broadcast with the guy who had kind of jobbed me out of the TU game. We had become friends, and there was no promise of one thing and give me another on this one. And so, and what the heck, I'm going on the road and traveling. So did that, and then the team moves out of town, after a season. So, but now I'm an old pro at unemployment at this point. So I moved. I had another friend from the league moved to Denver, and there was no broadcasting job, but they said, if you want to sell, we're hiring people to sell season tickets. Well, I'd never done that before, but I preferred employment to unemployment. So I thought, well, I'll go to Denver, and if I can't do it, if I fail, no one knows me in Denver, and I can go. Then I'll go back and live with mom and look for work there if I have to. Well, I wasn't a very good salesman, but I was so organized, and this is a lesson. If you do what your boss wants you to do, even if you're not the most I mean, if you're not the best salesman, but if you do what they want, they respect that, and so that then they move me into something else. Eventually,
Yeah.
we get the program, and we'll give you commission on program. You sell the ads for the program, we'll give you commission, and you edit it, and then do the team's travel, organize the team's travel, which means setting up the hotel, giving the manifest to the airport, to the plane, getting the buses lined up, setting up the meals, all that. I said, yeah, everything was better trying to sell season tickets because the league was as it turns out, in its last year. And anyway, so I did that, and that's obviously a very organized job, which was very good for me. So the league goes out of business again, and so then I'm back out of work. Well, believe it or not, someone else has bought this station in Tulsa, and they say, come back, and we want you to do the Tulsa minor league games. And they had hired a guy to do, a guy named Bill Land, who has done the Spurs games for several years. They hired Bill away from another station to do the Oral Roberts games, but they had me do the baseball. Well, I get there, and they say, well, the baseball team wants someone else. So I'm getting used to this, at least in Tulsa. So they said, we want you to sell advertising. So I said, okay. So I sold advertising. I could see this ship. They did a promotion the guy on the station thought this was really clever. He did a promotion where they took a full page ad in the Tulsa World. That's the daily paper, and saying, "Bring us." Arbitron was a rating service back then, where you would fill out a diary listing with the radio stations you listen to and when, and then on each line, and we'll give you $14.30, which was the frequency. Well, real clever. Got us a day of publicity, and also like 5 or 6 lawsuits from ad agencies and Arbitron, and so it was impossible to sell advertising because in a town that advertising because in a town that's money because that's they could have the big clients. Well, they're not going to buy any advertising with us because we screwed up the survey, lucky or whatever. I had the most people on the air, which was like 5, and one of them was because a guy had accidentally rear-ended me in a car accident, and my car wasn't damaged. And he said, "Look, if we don't report this, I have a satellite company. I'll buy an advertising schedule on your radio station." I thought, well, okay, whatever it takes. Well,
Yeah.
anyway, I could see this ship was headed for the rocks. So a guy who at the time, who's passed on, named Leland Schaffner, owned KOBE at the time, different owner from the first. So he says, "Look, if he knew I wanted to get back to do the Aggie games, he said he was going to try to get the rights to the games, and then he'd bring me back. But first, I had to go. It's like spend the night in a haunted house. No, I had to go manage his station in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. Well, Poplar Bluff is down in the boot heel of Missouri. It's a town of about 50. It's really rural, and so I didn't care. Well, this looked better than what I was leaving in Tulsa. So I drive over there, and I'm there for 6 months. Excuse me, and I gave him 6 months because he said he'd get it back. Well, he didn't get the rights back, but the people who owned the rights at the time had lost their announcer. I had friends in the athletic department, and they said, "Look, we'd like you to talk to Jack. We like him, and see if he can work something out." Well, we did. That was 86, and I came back, and I've stayed since. So there's kind of my little odyssey. Hope that wasn't too long.
Wow. Wow. I mean, what a journey. Wow. So
Yeah.
that's almost like so you kind of were like I mean, pardon the term, jack of all trades. You were doing salesman and then just trying to call, I mean, everything from baseball. Obviously, you've done baseball now, but that is quite a journey. Um, wow, state to state. And what is it about everything that you just told me that has kind of culminated that has made you create such a I mean just say it, just a legendary persona that you are on the radio, the voice that you have, everything that you've learned, that you've built, is kind of what you've become. Like, do you really understand? I mean, I don't know if you really understand just how the people of Las Cruces see you. I mean, not just Las Cruces, Southern New Mexico, anywhere that we have listened to the NMSU Aggie games. I mean, I grew up. I mean, I was born in the late '70s, and as long as I've been an Aggie fan, which is as long as I can remember, you were the voice. It didn't matter. Hey, turn on the game, and we're listening to Jack Nixon. I mean, does it really hit home with you the impact that you have here in this community?
It kind of is now. I think really, and I thank you for your kind words. I think it's important to be humble. I think it's, and
Yes.
I think that's a trait of Midwestern people that you don't toot your own horn. You do your best and you accept what comes your way. And of course, I like being praised. I'm not going to say that isn't the case, uh, but it has since I announced the retirement. It's been very very gratifying, Gabe. That people who maybe I shop at a convenience store or something, and I go in every day, and they know it's they say, "Oh, you're the guy that's retiring." And it's like, "Yeah," and I go, "Oh," and then they have a nice thing, like they didn't in some cases people know who I was, but and other people who I don't know, they've greeted me like a long lost friend, which is so gratifying. And I guess, and some other people have been very kind and sent me nice notes. But I guess, but I think that's I think it's good that I don't think. See, what I didn't want to do is, there's I don't know if there's a TV show that used to be called the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and it
Yes.
was set in the TV studio, and they had an anchor man who was real dumb called Ted Baxter, and he was this pompous jerk, and he was stupid, and I mean he was the comedy part, but he was like, yes, I'm the anchor man kind of a thing, and it was. I thought, God, I don't want to be like that, full of myself, and I hope I haven't been, but uh, I think that you have to kind of be yourself, and I think that the fact that I love it here, and I really because this culture is completely different from Nebraska. I moved down here, never been to. Well, I've been to. My dad and my sister and I went on a business trip to Albuquerque when I was like 7. So that's I mean, and I have a vague remembrance of that, but I didn't know what New Mexico was like. And it didn't matter to me. I was so excited to get this job. There could have been, open sulfur pits around the town. It wouldn't matter to me because, I was going to be a D1 announcer, and so I was so happy with that. And I got. Let me tell you about the first time I had Mexican food, if you don't mind.
Oh, here we
Uh,
go.
the people at the radio station said, "Okay, let's get you some Mexican food." Well, El Sombrero used to be behind the Welcome Inn downtown. Now, if you're new to
Yes.
Cruces, you won't know these places, but uh, anyway, anyway, so they said, well, let's go to El Sombrero. So we go down there. I go, what do I get? They go, get red enchiladas. Okay.
Ooh.
So I tried red enchiladas, and this is the weirdest thing, Gabe. I liked the way it tasted, but it was so hot. It was painful. It's like, God, my dogs are here, so you're going to hear them in the background. I
That's all
apologize
right.
for but it was like it tasted good, but it was so painful. It's like, oh, so I got through like a quarter of it the first time, and I went back maybe 3 or 4 times before I could finally finish a whole plate of red enchiladas, which is red is my favorite.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so that was like, so I thought, man, this food is the best, and it still is. So anyway, that's how I got a little bit of last crucifixion, and then I was a young man, and so I was would go out with friends and things like that, and kind of got did the things that people in their 20s do, and so I don't remember how I wandered off on this, but I really I felt fortunate to be down here with that position at the time, but I really liked it here, and I was sad to go the first time, but it was kind of like I had to, and then when I had the chance to come back, it was just like oh, paroled from Devil's Island. I'm coming back. I'm coming home. That's really how it felt. And I thought, well, when I get back here, I'm going to do my best to hang on to this and not annoy too
Yeah.
many people and dig in.
Well, I mean, let me just tell you. I mean, obviously, I am a fan, and I'm not alone in that. I mean, matter of fact, I was just telling you before we started the show that I was out in Phoenix yesterday with my brother, and he used to be with a band called Cruce's Band here. They were very well known around here, and I remember I was telling him about how I was looking forward to this interview, and he's just thinking. He says, "Man," he goes, the thing that comes to mind," he says, "is we would be on the road, and in Albuquerque, or we'd be somewhere, even here in Las Cruces, doing a show." He said, and we would take a break. He goes, and we knew that Jack Nixon was on and the game was on. He goes, so there we were, at somebody's vehicle in between breaks. That's how they were spending their breaks. He says, we were like, we knew we got to hear Jack Nixon and calling the game tonight. That's how it is, and that's how Las Cruces sees you. To be honest, you're just you're untouchable. I guess let's put it that way to those of us who are fans. But let me switch up really quick. I really wanted to ask you about you were here for the second time around with Lou Henson when he
Hmm.
came back around.
Hmm.
Just such a strong legacy that he has here. Tell me a little bit about maybe some of your thoughts or memories about Lou Henson.
What a gentleman! I never heard him. He would get angry, but he never cussed. He would, and which is unusual for coaches for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Anyway, but he never did that. He'd make his point. The players completely respected him. They even though there was obviously an age difference, he knew so much about basketball, and he was just so kind. The remember, and his wife Mary would travel on most of the trips. So we were playing North Texas one time, and back then we didn't rent a big bus like we do now, but we would get rental cars, which is a real pain in the neck, but that's how we did it. And so the team went in these rental cars. So coach said, "Well, look, Jack, why don't you drive this one?" And so I drove. He and his wife. So okay, so we're driving. We're leaving DFW, and I don't know where I'm going. I mean, I think I'm trying to follow the signs. He says, "Well, go this way. This is how you get there." So okay, so well, it wasn't. We were going in the right direction, and it's on these 2-lane roads, and I can tell because I know it's a freeway that goes out to Denton. I know that much, and I don't know what to say. It's like, are you, oh, that's right, Jack. Don't worry, we're getting there. See, we're going north. And it's like, okay. And so I look at his wife, and she gives me like, just do it, just go on. So we eventually get there, like 40 minutes after the rest of the team, and they look at me like, what the hell? Where were you? I go, well, coach had the directions, and they said, okay. So but he was always gracious. He was just a good guy, and just very down to earth, and just also very humble, and I mean knew so much about basketball. And if you don't mind another story, he and Bobby Knight had kind of a rivalry in the Big Ten. Well, then we Aggies scheduled Texas Tech to come play here. When one night was the coach, he played here, and back then we had a coaches luncheon, kind of on the day of if there was or whatever. And so we have a coaches luncheon that day, and Knight agrees to come and speak. We usually would invite the other coach, but usually it was like Alcorn State or North Carolina, AT&T or someone. And so then the coaches, they'd come, and I think Lou would give them a little, kind of a stipend. So Knight comes, and which was kind of a big deal. So we have a big crowd, and and honestly, and he's passed out, but he was charming. I mean, that he was angry and could have a temper, but he came and he had that side too. He was charming, and he was hugging our fans who wanted to hug him, and he gave a good speech. And then we would allow questions afterwards, a few, and so some fans asked questions, and a reporter from one of the El Paso TV stations asked a question, and I said, whatever it was, Larry, we're just having the fans right now. If there's time, we'll take media questions. And he goes, in fun, says to me, he's with the media. I go, yeah. And he goes, then throw them all out of here. And everyone laughed. But anyway, but it was obviously they were competitors, and I guess they patched things up enough for that. But that was another fun thing with Coach Henson. He of course he would just say little things like, just good basketball knowledge, like a good team wins close games. If let's say the Aggies, maybe lost by 2 or whatever, he says no, a good team will win those games, or we would win a game by 2. But he was great. It was so sad when the year that he became ill and couldn't finish the season, because I think we won 4 games that year, and 3 of them when he was the coach. But no, he was a super guy, and his still remains beloved down here.
Yeah, and I think we can both agree that his legacy down here is just it's golden. That his reputation, the people love him here, and I remember the community being so excited when he was hired back to come back to Las Cruces and coach NMSU. So that's great. That's some good stories to hear right there. I love it. Now you've been a part of, there for so many ups and downs, namely with football, basketball, of course, obviously the 2 big ones here. Oh man, it's just been, I really wanted to ask you, what was it like the Sweet 16 year, Reggie Jordan, Randy Brown, Michael New, and those guys. I remember it clearly, UCLA Sweet 16. What do you remember about that time? Everybody was so excited.
They were, and it was one of those things that just kind of like frequently happens when there's an ups. It comes out of nowhere. The Aggies were the lower seed to DePaul there in the first round in Phoenix. But DePaul, you looked at them and they were good, but they weren't a dominating team. They had some good players, but they didn't have a great player or like a Larry Bird or someone like that. So you're thinking, well, maybe we got a chance. Kind of like when Chris Jan's team beat UConn or any of these times when you think, okay, we got a chance, or we got a chance here. And sure enough, and the late Cubs announcer Harry Carey came to the game
Oh wow.
beforehand, just to say good luck to Joey Meyer, the DePaul coach. He came in and said, and then went on because it was there for spring training. Well, so sure enough, beat DePaul and looked pretty. I mean, looked pretty good doing it. And so then it was called Southwest Louisiana. Then they upset Oklahoma, and now we're thinking, okay, now we've got kind of the path is clearing. You know, we got a good chance with these guys because you know we had a pretty good team. Sure enough, we beat them. Then people are just going nuts. There was so much. People wanted tickets, and people were fans were promised this, and then people, and I won't get into specifics, but people in the school administration pulled rank, and so sure enough, going to the pit, and I would say the pit was as loud as I've ever heard it when we came out. I'm going to get cracked up over this. You're choked up. We come out with the New Mexico flag. Guy leading the team carrying the New Mexico flag. Pit goes wild for us. And it was some Aggie fans, but it had to be a lot of Lobo fans too. They went nuts for us. And of course, UCLA won the game, but to go that far, even though we went to the Final Four in '70, that was a whole different basketball world then, as far as and not to denigrate that team, but because that was an incredible team. I have a story about that if you want to hear one about that
Yes,
too.
yes, let's hear
I
it.
was a student, but that Sweet 16 year, the Sweet 16 year was, put Neil on the map, and then we won another. The next year, I think we beat Nebraska in Syracuse, and well, to go back a second to the '70 team, my sophomore year in college was the 1969-70 season, and I was back in Omaha between semesters. Well, the Aggies were number 3 in the country that year at that point, and they were going to play Creighton. Creighton University is in Omaha, and Creighton had a pretty good team. Eddie Sutton was their coach. Eddie Sutton went on to coach at Kentucky and Oklahoma State. So New Mexico State's coming in. I thought, well, I want to go see this. Here's a basketball fan. Here's the number 3 team in the nation. So I get a date, and we go. And the Omaha Civic Auditorium was sold out. I had a ticket, but I had to sit in the aisle. I gave my date the seat in the regular seat, sat in the aisle, which I'm sure wasn't legal, but whatever. Creighton beats New Mexico State. Creighton wins, which I thought was pretty cool because I was, had no allegiance to New Mexico State then. One of 3 games they lose that year, and I see it, unaware that this will be, part of my future. So it was a hell of a game too. Creighton had a guy named Cyril Baptiste who played a few years in the NBA. But so I don't know if you call that fate or whatever, or just one of those things in life. But I did have a brush with the Aggies back then, and in a way, Coach Henson, unaware that it would manifest itself.
Yeah, it's crazy how life comes back around at you like that, and kind of the universe ties everything in
Mm-hmm.
together later on in life. Now you mentioned us up at the pit, and talk to me about what it's been like to be a voice for one side of such a historic rivalry, of the I-25 rivalry of the Aggies and the Lobos.
Well, I would say that initially I had, I was 26, and so I was kind of a smart, like punk kid, and I was sort of us against them mentality, and wasn't going to be rude to the Lobo people, but we're unified, and that was kind of the mentality Ken Hayes liked about it. He was the basketball coach then, and Jim Bradley was the football coach here back then, and then as I matured. I realized I became friends with some of the people up there, and Mike Roberts, who was the Lobo announcer for so long, and Mike and I, kind of became friends and kind of got over our, our we're better than Aggies over Lobos kind of thing, and became,
Yeah.
I guess, just because we got used to each other and some other people up there, and so then instead of going up there like we're going into behind enemy lines and it's going to be horrible, it was more like, okay, I'm going to see Mike, and I'm going to see some other people, and Snake, that crazy fan of theirs. He and I are friends now too, and so it's more like I wouldn't say it's just another game, but it's. I don't feel people up there, I guess, have come to respect me or like me or whatever, and so I'm kind of greeted as just an old friend coming, I guess, old friend coming back, and so, but as far as so that has been perhaps just a maturation of my personality, but in terms of the rivalry, oh yeah, it's great when the Aggies can beat the Lobos in anything. Their budget is so much bigger than ours, and they have so many more resources. My first year, the Aggies beat the Lobos in football 16-7 up there in Albuquerque, and the Aggies swept the Lobos in basketball. This was 76, 77. The next year is when the Lobos had the Michael Cooper team. Well, actually, Cooper played the year the Aggies swept him, but then the next year was their NCAA. They choked out and lost to Fullerton in the first round, the Lobo team. So the Aggies beat. So my first, we had I guess a trifecta sweep in basketball and football, and people have told me who live in Albuquerque, oh, the Lobo fans are insufferable up here. They think they walk on water and like this. And I guess I kind of see that a little bit. People don't take that attitude with me, but if I'm just kind of anonymously up there, I see that. But that's people down here. They same way we're better than we like us, not the Lobos. So it's not that's partisanship. But when I met people up there in kind of a similar situation, who and they have. And oh yeah, we listen to you. Sometimes we do jab and all that stuff. But I would say that I would, if excuse me, if you want a comparison on the rivalries between and UTEP too. I become really good friends with John Teicher, who's their announcer. John has been around for almost as long as me, and John, I have a lot of respect for John, and I did for Mike too. But I would compare the difference in the rivalries. It's like UNM are the snooty cousins who have a lot of money and perhaps have the nicer car, the nicer Xbox or whatever, and kind of don't appreciate and don't do anything with it. UTEP, it's like your brother-in-law who comes over, borrows your mower, doesn't bring back your grill, and is kind of always kind of showing up late for dinner on Thanksgiving. That UTEP's your brother-in-law. Lobos fans are your rich cousins. That's how I would say it.
That is a great analogy. I love that. That is because I've always felt, I lived up north for a little while, and anytime NMSU went to play up there, me and my roommate, because he's from here, we would make sure we made it down. So there was always that butting of heads with us and the other fans or here. And then from a fan point of view, I've always saw it as like our fans and their fans, there's a very strong dislike. I want to use the word hate, but it's pretty close to that. Whereas with UTEP, it's almost a friendly rivalry, almost like I guess like you kind of called it, like the brother-in-law type of thing. So I love that analogy. I really do. Do you have any? You've been through so many coaches. Let's talk with basketball, and then of course we had football. There was Jim Hess, there was Tony Samuel, Hal Mummy. And then, of course, the recent coaching changes. And then you look at basketball and you go from everybody from McCarthy, Lou Henson, Reggie Theus, Marvin Menzies. Do you have any favorite coaches?
Well, there's okay. Let me say first, there's very few that I didn't like. I don't really want to talk about them, but maybe you can figure out who I do like, and you can. And it doesn't matter now. I mean, in one case, the fellow's passed away, and good luck, bless his soul. And the other one, anyway.
I got you.
Ken Hayes was the coach when I came here in basketball, and Ken's still going, and he's a typical Oklahoma, and then he was kind of like Lou Henson, had a bunch of corny sayings and things like that, and that was kind of a good coach for me, I guess, to break in with on D1. I'd worked with coaches before, and in fact, in Florida, the coach who was the team that I announced was a guy named Ed Jucker. One who was basically in semi-retirement. Juck had won the NCAA tournament, but 2 years at University of Cincinnati in '61 and '62, I think it was. And so so I'd worked with someone who was a high-level coach, and so I kind of had an appreciation of how to behave and how to ask questions and how to do interviews and just how to be on time and just kind of be respectful of their time, which wasn't that hard to learn. And so Ken was a good one to break in with, because he was pretty easygoing. And in each case with each coach, it's like when they've all been good about when we want to do like the pregame interview. Well, we'll do it at this time, and they've always held to it because I show up and they show up. Ken was an easy one to work with. Weldon Drew succeeded Ken, and when Weldon was an assistant, it wasn't. Occasionally, we would go out and on the town a little bit, from time to time. And so he and I became friends. And then he became the head coach. It wasn't. I mean, obviously, we weren't. I was still. It was still a professional relation. Aggies had played in the All College tournament in Oklahoma City and beat Weber State. Neil was the coach at Weber State then. They beat Weber in the All College tournament championship. In the semifinal round, Aggies beat Santa Clara. Santa Clara had Kurt Rambis playing for them then, and the guy named Mark McNamara, who also played in the NBA a little bit.
Yeah.
They beat them in the semis, beat Neil in the championship, and then played Neil at Weber State and Neil in the NC2A tournament in Lawrence and lost in overtime. So I'd been around Neil a little bit, but didn't really know him. Well, I came back, and Neil was he was like and bless his soul too. He was like a typical bully in that he kind of pushed you until you stood up to him and said, "Okay, no, okay, that's it, no more of this." And then you were his guy. At least that's the way it worked for me. And so and we had a good we had a good professional relationship before that. But then he was the sort of guy he would do nice things for you, but he would always act like it was a coincidence or I have this extra jacket. Why don't see if it fits you kind of a thing. And which of course he had gone out of his way to do, and it was his way. And he also, and look, Neil did stuff that got the Aggies in trouble, and I'm not gonna, what happened, and the Aggies paid their penalty. But he also, on a personal level, he gave me advice when my sister was ill, and she had since passed. But anyway, dealing with her son, and I wasn't sure how to deal with things. And so more than once I would say, "This is going on. How do I?" Because his first wife had passed from leukemia, so he had dealt with loss. And of course, he was older and more experienced in life than I was, and he had given me advice on how to deal with those situations. And so, when the hammer came down and it parted, I know people were, well, whatever. It was kind of divided. A lot of people still didn't want him to go. They didn't care that he done all that stuff. They liked winning. Well, anyway, so even though there was some negativity attached to his legacy, I could never really I could never turn my feelings against him because he had been so kind to me on a personal level, and that's infinitely more important, I think, than basketball games. Anyway, after then Coach Henson came back, and then we got Reggie. Reggie was a lot of fun to work with. He was kind of crazy, but that was okay with me. And again, but he was always ready to go when we do that. But he did a lot of crazy stuff, and we had some good teams. And he had a guy, unfortunately, who got into trouble, who I think named Tyrone Nelson, who I think could have been, well, if he'd been been more at that time in his life, he'd been more disciplined. Could have had the career that Pascal, or could play, maybe not Pascal's career, but could have played in the pros. He was that talented, and he got into trouble, got arrested, and didn't stay for his senior year. But I always thought Tyrone was kind of an unfortunate tale of someone who had something that let it slip away. But that's the thing, it's how things go sometimes. Anyway, so Reggie, and then we had Marvin, and Marvin probably I became the best friends with of these guys, and as far as would maybe go to dinner now and then, and we just had a closer relationship. He was here for 10 years, and see, I'm going to tell you something that may not go down so well with your audience, but see, Paul Weir and I are still friends, and I know people were mad at Paul, and you got a right to be. I wasn't mad at Paul. I was mad at UNM because I didn't want to see him go, but that's how this business works. These guys, kind of like with Jerry Kill or anyone else, that and Chris Jans, when they have yes, we love it here and they like it here, but when they have an offer to make twice the money and go to a better job, well, that's how this works. If they say, well, I'll just stay here for the love of the fans, well, no one feels that way. I mean, we'd like to think.
Yeah.
It's the cold, cruel world, and if you're going to get paid a big wad, and so they offered Paul that much money, and so he had to take it, I think, And again, people aren't going to like hearing this, but he and I consider Paul a friend, and we worked together for 10 years, and we still are in contact from time to time. So there you have it, folks. I mean, there's maybe a mark against Jack's name in your mind, but and then Chris Jans comes in, and I really liked working because he's from Iowa, and so I felt that, not that I understood him in his mind, but I understood how Midwestern people are, and I understood his work ethic and how could see why he did things because I just know how that is. I really liked working with him because he was. I screwed things up a couple times, made him over it. But anyway, and then
it comes with the job, right?
Greg came, and now Jason. Well, I mean, yeah. Ways, I mean, and I really, and this is kind of something else that we didn't have touched on, but I think it's important to be honest with people, and to in a sense, as Howard Cosell would say, tell it like it is. And I don't mean that you go out of your way to say to rip your team, but if they're playing poorly, and at least you feel they are, you say it. And I know people. I don't know. I don't want to be. I never wanted to be a homer. I don't want, and I don't mind if the person I'm working with is kind of a homer, the color analyst. I don't think that matters, but I think I felt that you have to have credibility, and I think if you, in terms of that you have to do that, or people, because you want people to believe what you're saying, and say, well, if Jack says that they maybe they weren't, or we'll think whatever. So so that was kind of the football coaches. Jim Bradley, the late Jim Bradley, was here the first 2 years, and he was a stubborn guy, and but we worked together fine. And then a guy named Gil Krieger came in, and Gil won with Jim's players. Now he's passed on. Fred Zeckman was here. I didn't work with him. Fred was here in the time that when I was gone, and then Mike Knoll was here. Mike I had known from when he was in his GA here, and he's from Iowa too. And he it just didn't work out. But I mean, working. And then after that, it was in terms of, we didn't have the success that Coach Henson had, but hated to him and, felt about him. I would say Coach Hess is right there with Coach Henson in terms of being revered and cherished. And even though it's funny, he was from Texas, talked like a Texan, but he was more of he wasn't really more of a redneck. He was more of a beatnik. He really had more ethereal thoughts about it. Really, I mean, funny. I mean, he wasn't like we did read poetry together, or anything like that. But he had a different sort of perspective on that. And then we got Tony Samuel, and that was great because he's from Nebraska. He played at Nebraska, and he had all his coaches from Nebraska. So, I'd sit in, and then when they took a break, we'd talk about the Missouri game in 1983 when the Justice kid, cheap shot at Jerry Taggy or some stupid thing back then. We all knew about that, and I was really sorry to see them go because. Oh, and they were easy to work with too. And then, we, I'm losing track. Then we got Coach Walker, Coach Martin, and the thing the 2017 bowl team, bowl year was something. Which I wouldn't say it came out of nowhere, but of course it only developed at the end. I'm kind of free associating your game. I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
The 2017 year, we're kind of chugging through it. We're having some success, and we got our last. Things a lot of times things just have to line up right. You have to have a little luck or a little. The schedule just has to be right, especially when you're. Let's put it this way: when you're fighting to try to get to a level you haven't been to, if you're Michigan or UCLA or someone, it's not as important because you've got the resources to overcome stuff and you've got tradition and you've got all that. But if you're someone like New Mexico State who's just trying so hard to get to that bowl game, well, the schedule aligned right. Aggies were 4-6 coming. I think they lost coming home. I can't remember it exactly, but we come home and we have Idaho at home, and our quarterback Tyler Rogers had been hurt, and so Nick Genty was the quarterback. Tyler, he could have played, but they thought they could get by with Nick, and they did. Beat Idaho, and we sacked Idaho like 10 or 12 times in the game. And Nick, manage the offense good enough to the Aggies won. This is the next week. It's another 5-6. It's like, oh, we've been here so many times before. Had Utah State in here, last game of the season, and Cody Ledbetter throws like 2 interceptions in the end zone. We lose, and we win that one. We have a winning season bowl game. One game was like, we've been so close. Other games, remember with North Texas, we don't win up there, but we have it's within our grasp. And of course, I guess realistically, you're thinking, oh, we're gonna, maybe we won't this time, but we had a good year. But of course, your hope, you're thinking, no, this is going to be it, because Aggie fans have that for a while. Then perhaps still do think, oh no, this will be it. This will be the year. So sure enough, South Alabama comes in. They had fired their coach, or he had quit, or whatever. He was leaving, so this was going to be their last game for him. So think, oh, maybe there's another indicator. Maybe they won't be a rollover, but maybe they won't be quite as inspired as if not. Sure enough, Tyler hits Connor Kramer with a pass in the end zone, gives us the win, and we go to Tucson. And we had played in the tournament in Hawaii. That was also Chris Jan's first year, 2017. We had played in the Rainbow Tournament in Hawaii and had beaten Davidson and then Miami, Florida, who was nationally ranked at the time, and then lose on a buzzer shot to Southern Cal. So I fly back from Hawaii and get over to Tucson. And the night before, we had a coaching show at this bar that we set it up. And so I drive over there to do the show, and it is filled. I don't know if you were at that, but the place was filled, people outside, all Aggie fans. And I almost started crying, seriously, because I thought, finally, our fans have something, football-wise, to feel good about and to walk around like big shots, in a way, like, hey, we're here. We've got something to be proud of. Our football team's here. And, the rest of you, screw you, or whatever. And I thought, finally, here's a chance for us to be happy, our fans to be happy. And we did it in our show, and it went well. So then and I woke up the next day, and I'm driving over to the stadium, and I'm excited for it, but I'm completely at peace in my mind. Which was kind of unusual, because I'm usually not bouncing off the walls amped up, but I was just completely at peace. And I'm thinking, I am driving to our bowl game. I am going to broadcast our bowl game, which I thought I would never be doing. And so I get there. I'm getting close to the stadium, and here's some fans. I said, guys, play Utah State. They're blue and we're red, and so there's some fans. That's good. I wasn't really thinking. I was thinking about the broadcast, and I hadn't really been in town to know. Other than the fans I saw at the thing last night, I had no concept that we had that many people that were going to be there. You get closer, here's more people and more people, and I'm thinking, my golly, look at all these fans. So I pull into the parking area, and I get out of the car, and here's a guy who I don't know who it was, but he saw me in an egg, he knew who I was. Jack, we're going to beat those guys, and I'm thinking, yeah, okay. So now I'm like, okay. I mean, it was like it kicked in, like, this is real. In a way, like, man, this is real. And as I'm walking in, and the team arrives, and there's our fans. They're all lined up, and I hadn't seen that kind of enthusiasm since we've been the first time I saw like a team walk was at Auburn years ago, and they do the Aggie walk now. Well, they did the Tiger walk, and the fans there were cheering for those Auburn players like they were war heroes. You think these guys answered the way these fans loved him and sincerely loved him. Well, this is the way our fans were, our team getting off the bus, going in. So it's like, wow, what a day. And then, of course, we win the game in incredible fashion. And it was, it was amazing. We get Jerry here. And again, another Midwestern guy. He's from this little tank town in Kansas. And I love working with Coach Kill. And I know people are unhappy with the way that shook out, but look what he did for New Mexico State. I mean,
I'm saying this. What we had last year was, even though it didn't end with a bowl victory, it felt like just such a special year. From the Auburn thing, going into their house, taking their money and putting a whooping on them, and to just what he was able to do in his time here. I'm with you. Like, I know some people are like, oh, why did he just leave like that? I respect it. go ahead and do your thing, because what he brought us last year was a lot to cheer about. But I'm sorry, go on, go on.
Well, no, well, both years really, and it was like,
Yeah,
I mean, back in 1980, 89, if I said, okay, I foresee the future and we'll have back-to-back bowl years, people would have, put me in the psych hospital. And yet, and then he does it. And
yeah,
it's hard. He's not a young man, and he's not fragile, but it's a lot of work, and it's a lot harder now with the NIL and the transfer portal and all
hmm,
this other stuff. And I just think that I can't speak for him, but it was like, well, he's kind of had his fill. He figured, okay, I've done it. I want a less strenuous assignment is what I took it to be. And and I can't, perhaps like with Paul, I can't be mad at someone who I've grown friends with and have been, you know, friends with me. And like I said, it's a business, and if they have a chance to do that or
yeah,
make their life better, that's how it is. And now Tony, I mean, Tony came here. He played for Coach Hess. Came in '94,
hmm,
so I knew Tony when Coach Sanchez when he was a player, and so it was an easier transition because we know each other, and he's very easy to work with. So uh, you know, the coaches, they're well, they have to have control over things because they're in
yes,
charge of in some cases a group of 80, 90 kids, and you have to have things organized, and it doesn't mean that they're have to be jerks, but they have to have things organized and have to have things their way, and that's true for all the sports. And I guess I kind of realized that early, and so I realized, and they were always, like I said, if I said, okay, when are we going to do the interview, and I show up, they're always ready to go, and that's all I could ask for. And they, some would give a good interview, some wouldn't, some were incapable of it, or some didn't want to, but whatever. And life goes on. So I would say that it's been it's been eye opening because everyone's got a different personality. Everyone reacts to things differently, obviously. But I would say that I've been very fortunate because they've been very, for the most part, easy to work with and fun to get to know.
yeah. Now, we were talking about, you talked about head coach Sanchez, and you also mentioned the trade portal, and I mean the trade, excuse me, the transfer portal. What are your thoughts on that? Because I really feel like Tony Sanchez was put in a tough situation because of the transfer portal. You had Diego Pavia leaving, and I think the whole quarterback room is completely different now. So obviously, I watched last night's game as I got in from Phoenix, and you can see it. You can see that it's going to take a little bit to figure out who's going to be the guy. But what are your thoughts on the transfer portal? Do you feel it's a good thing? And if it is, do you maybe think like me, where I think it's not perfect? So there's a little bit of restrictions I think they got to put on it. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I don't think it's going to go away. And so, honestly, I guess that maybe I'm too old to adapt to that. I think it's hard for me to, well, there's part of me, let me say this, there's part of me that feels like when Jabari Rice goes, and he should have, because they gave him an incredible deal. And I mean, I was sorry to see him go. Or when Diego goes to Vanderbilt or any of these players. I mean, I understand that it's a financial thing, but it's hard for me to in my mind to think of them as Aggies, and maybe that's unfair. Maybe that's just old school thinking on my part. But I mean, they were Aggies, but in terms of, but I guess it taints it in my mind. But maybe that's just I'm just having trouble adapting to this.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be tweaked because
Mhm.
I just see, and obviously, it, it, you know, schools with more money are always going to poach players if they can. That's obviously what happened this last time.
Mhm.
NIL
Yeah.
allowed Arizona State and Vanderbilt and other schools just to come in and buy basically our players, players they wanted. Now some stayed, and which was nice and which is great, but uh, I don't like it. But it's you have to play what's dealt, and you have to hope that your product is in your atmosphere and your coaches are such that you want you'll keep your players that maybe you can give you action offer, but if they like it here and they like playing here, that probably won't happen because a buck's a buck, and
Yeah.
and that's just the way I understand that too, the way of the world. But I think that the way that fans can combat that is by supporting the Aggies NIL, A Mountain Sports, and that's how you keep players. That's how you get players. And you think, well, that's pretty crass. I mean, that's completely different from when in 1976 when they started. Of course, amateurism, when there were very strict rules and transfer rules are different. You couldn't pay players. Well, now that's all out. And although it may seem moral objection to that, okay, but that's how it is. And whether you like it or not, if you want the Aggies to try to get these players, then maybe chip in a little bit. You don't have to give them $1 million, but if you can help, that's how you retain players. You get new players, and whether you like it or not, and whether you think it's right or not, that's what is. And so you have to make your plan.
Absolutely,
based on
I agree. So now, really quick, I know you talked about a lot of players, a lot of coaches. My big thing has always been basketball with the Aggies personally.
Most
So,
people. Yeah.
so many players, so many great players that have come through. Oh man, I look at guys like we talked about the Sweet 16 time, and you can go all the way back when you talked about the Final Four team. We can talk about the Eric Channings, the Billy Keys, Pascal. Do you have any particular favorite athletes? Maybe just whether it was with interviews or just because you loved watching them play. Any that come to mind?
Oh well, yeah, several. The one of my favorite teams was the 1998-99 team that went to the NC2As, and it was Eric Channing, Aaron Brote, Miko Nopola, Brad Bester, Zach Norvell was on that team. Davino Hines was another guy on that team, and I really, for whatever it was, they were nice young men, and they had the interest that young men have, but they also were very serious about winning. And remember, we were in Reno and regular season, and had beaten Nevada up there. And one of I don't remember who it was, saying, man, let's go out and have some fun. And I think it was Aaron Broad said, no, we're gonna come back here and win this tournament, and we're gonna celebrate them, which I thought kind of showed me something. Well, that year, Boise State was season. There's Poochie again, and they Boise State had beaten the Aggies that year, both times, and it wasn't even like close. I mean, blew them out at home too, and so we had to play them again in the Big West Championship. And this was in Reno, and their fans, the fans I ran into, were very arrogant. Oh, well, you can't beat a team. We beat you before. Well, and I was not. I didn't take the bait. I said, well, it's hard to beat a team 3 times. Well, you won't. Blah blah blah. Well, the Aggies won, and they went on to the NCAA tournament. That was he was such a good guy and a very nice person and very humble and very. Could obviously play, but just was very down to earth. Was not this. Yes, I will be the star. You may approach. He wasn't that way at all. Just a very good guy. Randy and Reggie and Michael were they were fun-loving guys too, and I enjoyed being with them, and I had a lot of fun with them when they came back into the Hall of Fame. Slab Jones, his freshman year was my first year, and Slab and Donald Dotson, the guy from that team, and I go to breakfast on Wednesdays. We solve all the problems of the world and talk basketball. But Slab would be a favorite. Let me kind of go through the eras with as I can. Billy Keys was such a nice. It's a nice guy. He was such a competitor, and he was one of these get it done guys. I mean, he's one of my favorite scoring one night. It might have. He would just have a get it done attitude, and I didn't try to put me on the spot, but there have been so many that I really. Teddy Allen was another one who. And Teddy kind of understood knew how to play the media, which is a savvy thing to do. But Teddy was from Phoenix, but he wound up at a high school in Omaha called Boys Town. Boys Town was a school. It was run by the Catholic Church for trouble. And So when I met Teddy, we were played in a tournament in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and we played the first game, and he and Jabari were walking, and Jabari said hi, and I said, Teddy, I said, we haven't met. I'm Jack Nixon. We have something in common. And he looks at me like, what could that be? And I said, I went to school in Omaha too. I'm a Central Eagle. Oh, okay. And so then, but Teddy would always give a good interview and was kind of a character. He was a fun player too. But
Yeah, he
we
definitely
had
liked to work the crowd too. That's one thing I remember about
yeah, he
Teddy.
did.
He liked to work the crowd.
He liked attention. Terrell Brown was a favorite. Such a good shooter. And I there's a lot of others. Steve Coulter. Steve Coulter was another one. And Steve also. Charles Gosa, another one. Steve was just he's such a gentleman. And he and in line with this. Sorry, my thing's wiggling.
That's okay.
Coulter and Fred Young, who played football here, both gentlemen who are, if you met them and didn't know them, and we're just talking to them, at the grocery store, and say, well, what about the rain, or what do you think about the Cowboys, or whatever? You would never know that they had played pro sports at the highest level, and you would never know that Fred was an All-Pro, that Steve had played, because they are so to have a life. And they would talk to you if you say, "Oh, didn't you do this?" And they certainly would talk to you and acknowledge that. But and that impresses me so much that they had that life, they excelled in that life and enjoyed that. And now but that's then, and they're not still living in, well, remember when I hit that shot that beat Southern Illinois?
Yeah.
None of that. And they just have moved on to where, and they're adults, and I just want to, and there's others too, but those two are two guys who just, were such impressive athletes, and now when you meet them, they're just impressive.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So, Mal, I mean, I could sit here and just all day, if we had the time, listen to you just tell these stories, talk about the people. Such an amazing career that you have had. And I'm sure I can safely say on behalf of everybody in this community, everybody that's ever had the honor of listening to you from game to game for so many years. Thank you. Thank you for being our eyes in these games, because I can listen to you and you're calling every player, every single pass, every single move made, and I feel like I'm watching it. So thank you for being so amazing at what you have done here for our community for as long as you have. I really
Thank you,
appreciate
Gabe.
that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your kind words. It's very nice of you. I've been very fortunate to live here and thrive here, and I love Las Cruces, and maybe that's why I've been able to fit in so well.
Well, we love you back, sir. I'll tell you that much. So before I let you go, I got to ask you, off the top of your head, what is your favorite Mexican food restaurant? We'll say maybe you can give me one that is no longer here, one we got now.
Well, Andale's now.
Yes, thank you. Oh, I'm with you. I'm with you.
And Chala's is a close second. But a place I
Okay.
like to go that is no longer here was a place. It went into the old El Sombrero location called Miguel's. Was the fella's name, and I loved the way he did enchiladas. And then COVID came, and it just that TKO'd that. But I love to go down there and get enchiladas. That was my favorite place for enchiladas. If I tell you, if someone says, we're going to throw you a retirement dinner, what would you want? I would want them to find Miguel and have him cook enchiladas for
There
me.
you go. There you go. So now before I let you go, I know it's Sunday. If you're like me, I like to just kind of relax and do a little bit. So any final thoughts as you get ready to call it a career? Maybe you got some plans or just anything you want to say to the rest of the community out here as we, get ready to enjoy you in your final year. And I know you're hoping. I did read that you're hoping to go out with a third bowl game in a row. But what are your any final words that you got for me?
Well, I'm so appreciative of the opportunity to be here, and I might have taken it for granted my first time around. I think I was young and I was arrogant, and I didn't really understand what I had, perhaps, and I learned that very very realize that very sincerely. In the 4 years I was gone, that was a good. I think that life gives us these lessons, and if we're paying attention, we'll learn. I guess as a final comment, I would say that uh, I've been fortunate to be down here, and fortunate to understand understand the Hispanic culture. I've learned to speak Spanish. Pero no es perfecto, but I've learned to speak Spanish. I really and because Nebraska is very very white, which is nothing wrong with that, but it's very different from down here, and so. The people down here that have gotten to know me have been so kind, so welcoming, and I think that's just part of the Hispanic culture. It's just, it's just that they're very. If they see that you're a good guy and are making an effort to be a good guy, they welcome you and they accept you for that. And so, I would say that I've been fortunate to live in a town that is so not is so wonderful. I'm looking forward to this victory lap year, I'm calling it. I'm going to stay and do the news here in town for Bravo Mike Communications. And I've got some other projects in mind that I really can't start until I'm done with this. But I think that the fans will find them interesting. And I've been very blessed to have this go. I think that God looked over me and kind of kept me on the right track so I could get to the point where I could build this to whatever it is. And I'm very, very thankful for that, and very thankful, Gabe, to you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this.
Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been quite an honor. I just recently, I've been doing podcasting. I had a football one for the last 2 years, but I just recently got into this show where I wanted to, interview and speak to people within my community. And of course, a lot of that comes from listening to your post game interviews and such. So thank you for being an inspiration to people like me. Really appreciate that. Really, it means a lot, and it was an honor. So thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So before we head out, everybody out there, if you have anybody within this community that is doing something, maybe somebody that we've never heard of or somebody we have, and you would like to maybe consider that I'm willing to always bring them on the show. Just email me offthegrid.lc@outlook.com, and we will talk about it and get them on here. All right. And also, everybody, this episode, as well as my other episodes, available on Spotify, iHeart, and Pocket Casts. You can catch them anywhere on there, absolutely free to listen. So y'all go on and do that. And let's get some more people from Las Cruces involved with this show, because I love my community, and you are a big part of that, sir. You've been a big part of me growing up in this community, and my love for the Aggies will always stem to you, always. And I'm sure I'm not alone in saying that. So, but it is time for us to get up out of here, everybody. It is Sunday, so y'all go ahead and enjoy the rest of your day. But before I do, like I say after every interview, I like to leave with a positive message, and it always relates to my guest and their story. And I think with your story, this goes perfect, because you've been everywhere. You've been from state to state, and everywhere that you were kind of brought you here. It was a journey for you. So you were never in one part of the grid. You were everywhere, and it finally brought you here to our community. So what I say to everybody out there is it's okay to go off the grid, try new things, do new things. It's going to lead you somewhere, but never get up off your grind. Always continue to work hard, because that is exactly where you shine, and that is where you shine the brightest. I am Gabriel Garcia. This is the legendary Jack Nixon. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Thank you again, Jack, for being here. Really appreciate you. Good luck in your retirement. Enjoy it, because you have absolutely earned it, sir. You have absolutely earned it. And, I'm sure we'll see you around. But thank you very much for being here.
Thanks again very much. Appreciate it.
We are Off the Grid. I am Gabriel Garcia. This is Jack Nixon. We're going to catch you guys on the flip side, all right? Until next time, have a good one, y'all.
If you're down, leave your drama behind and let's roll. The world is getting lost in my feel-good flow. Oh! Need that music medication, that's my specialty, though.